The thing is, Europe depends more on the United States, both in terms of security and from the perspective of its foreign policy direction. In this particular situation, of course, and first and foremost, it's Europe's policy regarding Ukraine. Now, no one is listening to it because Europe and the European elites have put everything at stake. Their conviction that they will be able, with the hands of the Nazi and the bodies of the Nazi regime in Kyiv, to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. This is, of course, an astonishing story. But I repeat, there is no proof Russia intends to attack France. If they are counting on the fact that they will announce, well, we are now prepared to sit down at the negotiating table with Russia, are we simply going to rush over there? No. Macron, he already said somewhere that he's going to go and participate in BRICS. No one invited him there. I don't think there is a consensus within BRICS, or that even most BRICS members would be happy to see France, given the positions France holds in the global economy, politics, and world finance. Too much of this kind of incomprehensible stuff is happening. One moment, Zelensky states in Istanbul that he is prepared to discuss this plan, to agree upon some acceptable formulations, but then his representatives declare, including those at international organizations in New York. In my opinion, some lady, the deputy ambassador, announced that it is completely out of the question. It is difficult for me to comment on such speculations, and we continue to hold the position that naturally a diplomatic resolution is always preferable. We had thought, and were almost entirely convinced, that following the meeting which occurred in Alaska, a meeting that had been preceded by the visit of Steve Witkoff, who carried a direct instruction from Donald Trump. Witkoff brought to the meeting with Putin specific parameters for a comprehensive settlement, which fully took into account our core fundamental approaches, and most importantly, were based on the understanding that it is absolutely necessary to concentrate on addressing the root causes of this ongoing conflict. The root cause lies, as everyone well knows who has studied the history of this drama, in the West's attempt to absorb Ukraine into the North Atlantic Alliance, to create a military threat to Russia directly on our borders, contrary to and in violation of all promises that were given, even to the Soviet Union. And contrary to the agreements already made with the Russian Federation in Europe, which is within the framework of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe,
Go.
To dictate its will to everyone, it of course has been preserved. Perhaps it was even more clearly revealed when its ideological shell had completely fallen away. That is the very essence of the approach, which one can describe it in various ways, but America must always be first everywhere, and everyone must obey America. However, this approach is applied not only to Europe, but to all other nations as well. The thing is, Europe depends more on the United States, both in terms of security and from the perspective of its foreign policy direction. In this particular situation, of course, and first and foremost, it's Europe's policy regarding Ukraine. Now, no one is listening to it because Europe and the European elites have put everything at stake. Their conviction that they will be able, with the hands of the Nazi and the bodies of the Nazi regime in Kyiv, to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. And the very same principle applies to foreign policy matters. Think about all 8 of the armed conflicts that Donald Trump successfully brought to a stop, and truly we deeply appreciate his consistent effort not to initiate new wars, unlike many of his predecessors, but instead to actively work towards ending them. Indeed, every single one of these 8 wars genuinely paused for a significant period. Ceasefires have been announced, and just recently in the Middle East, and also between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and between Cambodia and Thailand, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda. These truces have indeed been established almost everywhere there, but these initiatives did not address the root causes. And now, once again, we are witnessing the emergence of issues along the Cambodian-Thai border region, as well as between the nations of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And things are far from cloudless, to put it very mildly, on the Palestinian-Israeli front. Therefore, the aspiration to immediately put an end to this bloodshed, it certainly deserves every possible encouragement. But of course, in order to truly regulate this situation in the long term, we will need many more painstaking, patient and deliberate initiatives. Macron, if my memory serves me correctly, just recently issued yet another statement claiming that Russia had invented this entire war. There were no reasons, not a single real threat. It's all a mystification. This is simply, and I'm quoting from memory now, the convulsions of a power that weeps over the loss of its statehood, over the loss of its imperialistic colonial past. This is being said by the President of France, but it seems his approval ratings are in a truly terrible state. Or then there is also this defense minister. You mentioned the chief of the general staff, but they also have a defense minister, Mr. Pistorius. I truly hope I pronounced all the letters of his name correctly. He was claiming here that Russia would attack before the year 2030. Now I figured it could be 29 or even 28. What are they preparing their people for? For the inevitable? This is, of course, an astonishing story. But I repeat, there is no proof Russia intends to attack France. You know this arrogant style that Macron and Merkel both display. Not to mention various Belgians, Dutch, and the citizen named Rutte. This arrogant style, it clearly reflects their confusion. They simply don't know what to do if they were to suddenly change their rhetoric and following reasonable European leaders like Viktor Orban, Robert Fico, they were to declare that it's necessary to engage in dialogue with Russia. And let's stop betting on war. They are probably afraid to lose power. Every year when I come to New York for the UN General Assembly session in 22, 23, 24, and this year too, speaking at the Security Council, I address UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, looking him in the eye, and I say, can we not at least get a list of the people whose bodies were shown in a BBC program as victims of the Russian army's atrocities? I already feel somewhat embarrassed for him, but he is still a respected man, the general director. He says, well, we have certain rules here. This matter is handled by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. But I told him that we had already sent an official letter to them, and they say that they have certain procedures in place according to which they cannot disclose confidential information if it might cause moral or any other kind of harm to those who are still alive. Well, I'm not even going to comment on this. This is an absolute disgrace for an organization that, when it needs to, publishes any facts. But you understand, to conceal the names of those clearly already exploited, whose very bodies were used for provocation, that is a clear admission of guilt. I have no illusions about the people currently leading in the West. No one really has it. Well, I did just mention a couple of exceptions. Viktor Orban, Fico, and now Babiš has taken up the position of Prime Minister in the Czech Republic. These are pragmatic individuals. They are not pro-Russian. They are simply pro-Hungarian, pro-Slovak, pro-Czech. And they are concerned about their own citizens and do not wish to urge their citizens to sacrifice their children for the sake of supporting the Nazi regime in Kyiv.
And when that very same thing happens.
My former colleague, who once served as Finland's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alexander Stubb, after becoming president and quite naturally following a game of golf with Donald Trump, now positions himself as an absolute expert on everything imaginable, speaking from overtly Russophobic standpoints. You understand, nevertheless, the many long decades of Finland's neutrality, they still haven't managed to stifle those nascent sprouts, which in essence take their deep roots in the Nazi-aligned past of the Finnish state.
So they'll eventually find their moment of enlightenment, but when they are mature enough to talk, we'll then decide what it is we need to talk about. Let them be the ones to tell us.
If they are counting on the fact that they will announce, well, we are now prepared to sit down at the negotiating table with Russia, are we simply going to rush over there? No. We first want to understand what they will be prepared to bring to the table for discussions with us, and only after that will we make our decision.
Recently they stole 100 million, and this, it seems, has only just become clear, only just been revealed that another, probably close to another 100 million were spent on bribes to corrupt officials, perhaps someone from
of the Brussels bureaucracy, from those nations that are pumping money into Ukraine, explaining to their own taxpayers that they must endure, must suffer. Perhaps there are some beneficiaries there too. I'm not ruling anything out. And Macron, he already said somewhere that he's going to go and participate in BRICS. No one invited him there.
I don't think there is a consensus within BRICS, or that even most BRICS members would be happy to see France, given the positions France holds in the global economy, politics, and world finance.